And we're joined here by three wonderful panelists, and who will each do their introductions as well. So I want to pass it off to Laura next to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Laura Chan. My pronouns are she, her, and I graduated Tepper from the full-time program in 2019. Before Tepper, I worked as a tire development engineer for a Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, and I was looking to come to Tepper to become more well-rounded and less technical. So while I was at Tepper, I had concentrations in finance, operations management, and entrepreneurship. And I was involved on the Tepper Women in Business Board, as well as the Operations and General Management Board as well. And I currently work at Wayfair in operations. I lead their large parcel home delivery carrier innovations team. Yeah, did I miss anything? All right, awesome.
Yeah, and if we can go to Christina, that would be great.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Good, okay, great. My name is Christina Boyd. One thing about me, I have an engineering background, engineering undergrad, engineering master's before I came to Tepper. I started my career at Westinghouse. I had 3 jobs at Westinghouse. One thing about me is I'm just kind of the girl that is up for anything. And so people say, Christina, will you try this? I'm always going to say yes. So I started in simulation engineering, did quality engineering. I did some corporate continuous improvement. Then I went to natural gas. I did continuous improvement. I was the supervisor of a scheduling team, and that's when I decided to go back to Tepper and get my MBA. At Tepper, I've transitioned to work for Emerson now. I'm an analyst. I work in our PWS business unit, which is power and water, and serving the entire energy industry.
Great, and then Natalie.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Gerber. My pronouns are she, her. I am from right outside Pittsburgh. I just graduated this past year in 2020. My specializations when I was at Tepper were energy, sustainability, finance, and I took some organizational behavior classes, which were fantastic. The clubs and organizations I was involved with, I was on the GBA, which is the Graduate Business Association, which is essentially student government for Tepper. I was the vice president, which was really great. Really enjoyed that. I was also on the, I wasn't allowed to be on any boards because I was on student government. So I also did Net Impact, ECTC, and volleyball. I previously worked at GE Energy Financial Services before I came to Tepper. I was an investment analyst focused on infrastructure investing. Started in midstream oil and gas type industry, switched over to renewables, which just I realized that I had like a strong passion for, was very interested in it. And so after Tepper, I joined Oridan, which is a group company of Mitsubishi Power, focused on utility scale solar and battery storage development across the country.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. I will start off with just asking a couple of prepared questions, but for our attendees, feel free to start putting questions in the Q&A, and then we'll get to them as soon as we can. So the first question I want to ask our panelists is, how did you become interested in your industry? If I could start with Christina on this one.
Yeah, so I graduated undergrad in 2009. And I think ever since then, I've been really focused on energy. Renewables was always really exciting. And so I started in nuclear, and then I jumped to natural gas. And energy is I mean, it's so cliche, but I always say it is literally energizing, right? It is so exciting. I love big industrial equipment. I'm in the car. I was just at a hydro site today. So it is, I think, an industry that is so relatable to so many people. And I've always kind of loved it.
Great, thank you, Christina. Laura, again, same question, if you could share some insight with us.
Sure. So I guess the industry I'm in now is more logistics or e-commerce. I think you can go either way. I'm definitely on the logistics facing side of the company though. And I became interested in it actually at Tepper. Prior to coming to Tepper, I was very open-minded about what I wanted to do after school. I really like solving problems. My background's in engineering, so that's what I've done in every position I've had, is just figure out how to solve problems. And an alumni from Wayfair came and gave a talk, and I got really excited about figuring out the Wayfair supply chain and how to move big and bulky things safely and give a good customer experience. So I just got really excited to try to figure out how to solve that problem.
Great, and Natalie?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off Christina a little bit. Being from Western Pennsylvania, I started being interested in energy because of the shale boom. And then I just slowly switched over to renewables because I think it's definitely the future. It's extremely fascinating. I particularly work in solar development. So I'm like a project manager for all of my projects that I'm working on in the solar space. So it's a new challenge every day. No day is the same. And that's why I particularly like being in the development space within renewables.
Great, thank you for that. Again, very interesting and diverse experience from all of you. The next question I want to ask is, what is the biggest challenge in your company or industry right now? Or another way to say it is, how do you envision your company? Like, where do you envision your company or industry will go in the next 5 to 10 years? I want to start with Laura on this one.
Sure. So something on everyone's minds always at Wayfair, especially on the supply chain, is how to get these big, bulky items to our customers faster. So the average furniture delivery date can be upwards of 3 weeks, I think, on average. But we're trying to move that to, can we get that 2-day shipping? Can we get that? Can we match what consumers have learned to expect out of small parcel into those large parcel items? So that's one of the biggest challenges that I face day to day, is figuring out how to do that faster, figuring out how to do that better. In the longer term, though, I think part of, I guess, building on that is figuring out how do we get these big and bulky items into our supply chain sooner. So figuring out how we can extend our supply chain to start in Asia. So can we get those items from our suppliers even earlier in the supply chain so we can track them? And if we can track them, we can know what inventory is coming, so we can better communicate with our customers for how to get things quicker and what's available when.
Okay, great. Natalie?
Yeah, for the industry in the renewable space, I think a big challenge that we're going to see is obviously policy. With the new president coming in, like, how is he going to approach tax credits? How is he going to approach, I know his infrastructure plan is kind of like bundling in renewables and incentives for that. So from a policy standpoint, how are we going to continue to invest in infrastructure and loop renewables in? From a company standpoint, we are less than 30 people. So even though we are backed by Mitsubishi, we still are functioning like a startup, and we still do very much need to prove ourselves. So it's all about just like finding good projects, getting good deals, and being able to make some money off of that, basically, and just being lean and fast and just finding the best opportunities for us, because we are small and we do function like a startup. So it's just finding the right opportunities for us and capitalizing on that.
Great. And Christina?
Yeah, so I think some of our biggest challenges is the energy portfolio is going to shift, right? So we're going to see a lot more renewables, and that's a great thing. But we still need a balanced portfolio, and that's what we will see. But it's really uncertain right now. It depends on a lot of things, a lot of geopolitical events and policies that we don't know at this time. With that really balanced portfolio, for my company, we serve all energy customers, meaning we serve nuclear customers, we serve coal plants, we serve hydro customers, solar customers, and wind farms. So all of those customers have really diverse needs. And so what we used to see in nuclear plants and coal plants are these big, bulky units with a ton of equipment in them. You don't see that at a wind farm and a solar farm. And so our product has to change, and it has to be flexible. So Emerson, we make the control systems that control the plants and hook the main control room up to all the parts. And so we just have to figure out how to be competitive in a diverse and uncertain market.
Great. So panelists, again, thank you for that. I see that we are starting to have questions in the Q&A. I'll ask you one last question before I hand it over to Josh to take some of our participants' question. I'm really interested to know what resources help to guide you along your career journey as a student and beyond. I want to start with Natalie for this one.
From an energy perspective, specifically, we have a great faculty and staff. Like, for being such a small energy program, like, there really are like top-notch staff. There's an energy capstone that is professor-led, and they're able to get some amazing companies to help out. So just, it starts with the staff and the professors and all the support that we got from them from an energy side. But from resources, my classmates were fantastic. Like, I've never been around such like an amazing group of people that just want you to succeed, that they want to help you. Like, I'm sure the other panelists will echo this, but even students that were interviewing for the same positions, like, they would interview each other and they would ask each other questions and help. And it was just an incredible experience. And it was so humbling to be around like the super smart people who can help you and like make you a better, just like, classmate, a better colleague, a better person. So yeah, I don't want to take up too much of the time for the other panelists, but yeah, I think the students and my classmates were really like a good support system, and just made my 2 years like an incredible experience.
Right. I can definitely echo the support system here at Tepper. Can we go to Christina next?
Yeah, so I have a strong two that I would say. The first is career services. So I was a part-time student and I switched to full-time. And so when I did that, I kind of had oh crap, I don't know even what an MBA internship is. And they really helped me there. I mean, I was pretty focused on working for Emerson. I knew I wanted to work for Emerson. And so career services said, okay, here's Emerson's VP and here's their email and you just go for it. And so I did. And they really helped connect the dots so that I could get where I wanted to be. And the second thing I would say is the student organizations, and particularly marketing club. And so I came in with an operations background, and marketing was so fun for me. I loved it. I loved the strategy, and I loved being part of the club because I learned more from my peers than I necessarily did in class, right? In class, you're getting the theory, but when you're working with your peers, you're getting all these new ideas and how to think outside the box, and you're hearing about their experiences. And that really tailored how I wanted to direct my own career. So those are my two.
Great. And then Laura?
Sure. So I do want to echo, my classmates were really helpful, finding both informal and formal mentors among them. But also I would like to give a shout out to the Accelerate Leadership Center at Tepper. I worked with a leadership coach throughout my time at Tepper, and that was super helpful for me to help understand like really what is my leadership style and how to really own that in a business setting. So I think that was really helpful for me during my time at Tepper.
Great. So Josh, would you like to take us through some of the questions that our attendees have?
Sure. So I'll kick it off. I guess I'll start with Natalie, sort of following up on some of the energy courses that you took. So the question is, were there any courses at Tepper that you felt were critical to your success in entering the energy industry? Or was it more of the overall MBA program that helped you?
I do have a background in energy. So I think for me, it was more classes that I think could complement my skill set that I had. Like, for example, there's a sustainable operations class, and I thought it was going to be like, oh, all about implementing sustainability, but it was like a hardcore operations class, and I'm not an ops person. So that was really fun to like get a new perspective to an industry that I thought that I knew a lot about, but I really didn't. I'll say any of the organizational behavior courses in particular, I think were crucial to like developing my skill set into like the industry and the position that I was going into. Like negotiations was really great. There was a like power and organizational influence class, just like understanding the dynamics of an institution or an organization and understanding how you can like leverage yourself and be successful. So I know OB classes can kind of get overlooked because they're more soft skills, but I think particularly because we do already have industry background and going back to business school, like those can sometimes be the ones that we think are like fluff, but in reality, like help build up the holes in our skill set like that we're going back to get our MBAs for.
That's great. Laura, I saw you shaking your head. Is there an organizational behavior class you want to pitch?
No, I think what I was more agreeing to is less about the class, but even just like the extracurricular activities to bolster your soft skills. Just very in agreement that that's what getting your MBA is to practice those soft skills. And one of the really great ways to do that is by joining club leadership and getting to kind of practice being a leader before you mess up and learn from it before you have to in a work environment.
Yeah, definitely a great piece. And I will say Natalie may have had the hardest leadership position in all of Tepper, having to wrangle all of our clubs into doing the right thing, sort of running the show. The vice president kind of runs the show in many ways for the GBA. And so Natalie did a great job doing that. So the next question I have here is, what advice would you give to incoming students interested in operations roles, and particularly in what they should try to do before coming to Tepper? So I guess I'll start with Christina, and then this is a sort of short one so that we can go around, and then we'll go to Natalie and Laura after that.
I think the most helpful thing that you could do prior to going to Tepper is just to learn as much as you can about the industry, because one of the things, recruiting kind of starts really early and there's tons of resources. But if you have any idea about what you want to do after, Tepper has all the resources, all the connections, and there's always going to be someone who worked at that company that you can kind of learn to get more information about. And that's not to say that you have to know your path going in. I would have never thought that I would be really interested in the marketing and the strategy side of things. But I think just researching the industry, listen to podcasts when you're driving or you're walking, and kind of really immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, I can't speak for ops, but I do think whenever I came in, I was looking at everything but energy essentially. And I kind of was just all over the place, like, oh, maybe I'll do ops, maybe I'll do marketing, maybe I'll do this and that. And so I think I came with too broad of a perspective, I guess, that like, oh, I can just do whatever I want. But I think having at least like having an idea of what you want to do, but also not being so narrow for focus. Like some people want like this exact position with this exact company. And I think sometimes if it doesn't work out, like people are disappointed. So I think having an open mind and being flexible about what you're looking for, but also like not just being like, oh, I'm going back to school for 2 years, I can just figure it out. Like you don't have the time and the luxury to just figure it out when you get there. So yeah, like doing the research, like figuring out what interests you, and I think trying to narrow it down as much as you can beforehand, but still being flexible about like who you want to work for, maybe the types of roles in the industry that you're looking for.
I don't think I have much to add to that. I think both Natalie and Christina answered that well.
Awesome. So the next one we'll ask maybe more to get a sense of what day-to-day life looks like, sort of post MBA. So the question is what did you do at work yesterday, or if maybe today or something last week was a little more interesting or more better to describe the way your work looks, that also works. So I guess we'll start with Laura, and then we'll go to Natalie, and then Christina after that.
Sure. So pre-pandemic, I traveled a good bit, going to different warehouses to work with our employee driver teams. And from this, the reason why I did that was to get more hands-on and to really understand the operation. So before trying to fix it and implement and try new things, I wanted to really understand what was going on, and also be there whenever we try something new. So I spent a lot of time in the warehouses. I've actually delivered furniture and built it in the customer's home, so I could really understand what it's like to deliver a bed and have the customer watch you while you're scrambling and trying to put it together. But my general day-to-day, especially post-pandemic or during the pandemic, we've had to make a lot of those things virtual. So I've done sometimes I'll virtually ride along with the driver teams, and they'll chat with me while they're en route. And also figuring out just, we now have a driver lead position, so they're not on the road as much. So I'm able to get a lot of feedback from them there. So my day-to-day is interacting with driver teams, interacting with cross-functional partners to understand what can the carriers be doing better for them. So I do a lot of cross-functional work, either with, so for example, the category team wants that they sell, they're adding jacuzzis to the website, or to the website hot tubs, and they want to implement a new service level. So to have these hot tubs be delivered to the backyard. So I'll work with the driver teams to figure out how we can do this safely and effectively, and how we can roll it out to the network. So some things like that.
Like I mentioned before, I'm kind of like a project manager for what I do for my project, or for my the various sites that I'm looking at. So for example, I'm looking at sites in Virginia and actually like out in Indiana, the state. I was going to planning commission or board of supervisors meetings for like zoning ordinances, because that's a big part of getting solar projects approved, is like getting the buy-in from the county. So if the county doesn't approve it, like your project's dead. So it's doing a lot of community engagement, working with the leadership in the county. I also help with putting together, we need to get permit approvals. So I'm the one putting together an RFP document to send to consultants for them to do permitting work for us. I also do modeling. So I hated financial modeling whenever I worked for GE. And it's I think one of the aspects of the job is just being in the models, and thankfully I was comfortable enough in it before. But it's modeling, it's putting together budgets, it's writing up memos for approval to continue developing our projects. I will put schedules together because schedules are absolutely critical, particularly with the ITC, so the investment tax credits that solar has been awarded. Like, you buy equipment for a time, and if you have to use that equipment by your project being like in operation by a certain date, and then you get that tax credit. So timing is absolutely crucial for these projects. So putting together putting together schedules is incredibly important for me. I have a landman who is looking for new sites and opportunities all the time, and working with landowners in Virginia. So no day is ever the same, which I love. Like, I hate monotony. I hate just sitting in front of my computer all day, every day, working in an Excel spreadsheet. It drives me crazy. So just having like a ton of variety in my day-to-day schedule has made it really exciting, and is something that no day is the same, and it's never boring.
Go ahead, Christina.
Okay. Well, today was really cool for me. It's actually cooler than most days. But this week I was at a hydro unit up in New York. It's actually one of the largest hydro units in North America. It is so cool to just see like big equipment. I think I said that before. It just like gets me so excited. During this visit, I was out with some of our field engineers. I'm not a field engineer, so I was there to talk with the customer and be support to our field engineers who are doing hardware checks and site acceptance tests. But what I was able to do was connect some of the reports, some of the system registration reports that they're pulling off the computer, and talk about what that means to the business. And so it's kind of a cool way to connect my past with my present for me. So we're pulling these reports off, and to an engineer, they have the hardware and the network access and these router numbers, but they actually are how we will calculate in our marketing team, how we calculate the market size, how we assess our served market, how we can brainstorm ways to drive orders and sales next year, which helps us drive GP, which is something that I measure and make a lot of charts about. So right now I'm an analyst, which allows me to be analytical, but also creative, because you get a lot of times, Christina, this is kind of a problem. Here's some data. Like, can you tell me something it says? Can you make kind of a chart like that? That's really more my day to day, but this week is kind of an exception for me.
It's always good to have those fun weeks where you get to go out and see something cool.
Yep.
So sort of building on that and the analytical side, the question is around how much, or how have you gotten to use some of the analytics tools or analytical coursework at Tepper in your sort of day-to-day work, and how has that helped you succeed in some of your different projects and tasks that you work on? So I guess I'll start with Laura, and then if somebody wants to chime in, that would also be great.
I'm sorry, I was reading the Q&A. Is that the next one?
Slightly,
Sure.
but yeah. So how have you gotten a chance to use some of the analytical tools from Tepper in some of your work?
That's actually kind of tough question to answer. I honestly don't use very many of them. I do use a lot of the organizational behavior skills in my day-to-day work because I have a lot of meetings. Every meeting I have, it's a coffee chat, it's something, but everyone's a negotiation. You're trying to get their buy-in to help further your projects or your team's needs forward. So I actually don't use my analytical tools that much. It's always good to have it if you're creating a spreadsheet or a presentation and you're going into the SQL and you're trying to pull numbers real quick and there aren't analysts to support you, you're able to pull your own numbers. But I would say those aren't the skill set I use most often.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit more of like a financy role. So I do use like some of the skills that we learned in accounting and finance just when I'm in project models, and especially like doing whether it's pulling the returns for what my projects look like. I'm trying to think of any of the other like analytics classes. I think it's more like, for example, for econ, like we're not going in and we're not writing out formulas in our day-to-day work, but we are understanding like the functionality of it, and we're understanding why, like the process of getting to an answer, so that we can appreciate that we don't actually have to do this in our day-to-day job, but we can understand like the underlying assumptions or the underlying like process of coming to an answer. So yeah, I haven't used like the hardcore analytical things as much as normal, but I think that's just because like it's not as deep into the weeds as maybe some of the classes are.
No, definitely makes sense. There's one of the things, at least for my internship that I found, is some of the analytical skills can help you communicate with some of the data scientists, data analysts, engineers, and know what they're thinking about when they're trying to do their work, and so that you can better phrase your prompts to them or better understand their challenges or what time frame they might take to get their work done, or what inputs they need at times. So I think that's how I found them the most useful, is rather than doing the analysis myself, is understanding what my teammates are working on and how to best set them up for success.
Hey, I'll jump in on that one just because
Awesome.
I do have some classes that I would say. My background is in stat. I took a lot of stat in my master's degree, actually, so I love statistics. But I will say that the Tepper statistics classes give you some analytical skills from that at a nice baseline level, so that when you want to run a statistics analysis, you don't need some advanced software, and you can kind of apply it. So that was even as someone who has taken statistics before, I kind of gleaned that out of it. I have run regressions and other stat things in my job. I took big data, modern data. I don't know what else. I think in marketing analysis, we did actually some more statistics. And what I'll say about those kinds of things is, I think in one of them we learned Tableau. I use Power BI at work, and it'll take you about a day to learn a new software when you're kind of transitioning. So you get a lot of skills that are very easily transferable. I have, even if I didn't use directly what I did.
Makes sense. So another question from the chat. One of the students is interested to know how easy it is to transfer from sort of a non-tech background into energy or ops, and are there STEM positions in operations and in general management, especially for international students? So I'll start with the second half of that with the STEM position. So maybe Laura, can you talk about STEM positions and opportunities for international students in ops and general management?
Sure. So I can at least speak for Wayfair, but we do sponsor for the MBA positions at Wayfair if you're from a STEM school. So it's even though it's not necessarily a STEM position, they consider all of the MBA level roles for a STEM sponsorship.
I guess maybe for Natalie, I know you did a lot of energy work beforehand. Do you find it challenging not coming from an engineering background into energy?
It is funny, like in the classes, especially in our required classes at Tepper, it was really funny how easily the engineers picked up some of the classes, like whether it's like operations or I'm trying to think, or like I'm trying to think of the other courses that we took that like the engineers, it was just so easy for them, and I definitely like struggled a little bit more, but my classmates were super helpful. And I know that's not exactly the question, but I think so. The question was non-technical going into technical, or the other way around, transition to a non-tech background. Oh,
Yeah.
I think it's very easy. I think I know a lot of engineers that switch into business roles. Like I have a friend right now who he's at BP in Chicago, and he's getting an MBA, and he's looking to transition from being in like an engineering role into a more businessy role. I think it's way easier to do it that way. Like once, like I said, the MBA and like Tepper in particular had a lot of great organizational behavior classes that I think like makes you very well-rounded. So having the technical background and then having the MBA to complement like kind of makes you the perfect candidate. So I think having a tech background and switching into something non-tech is pretty easy. And I think especially Tepper, there's a lot of engineers and a lot of people who come from technical backgrounds who end up getting roles that are not technical, and it's very, very common.
How about the other way around, where you go from more of a non-tech background into one of the more technical fields, like energy, coming out of Tepper?
I think like coming to Tepper is the right place to do that because you do get like a STEM MBA associated with you. So doing it the reverse is probably maybe not quite as easy, but pretty easy, just given Tepper's pretty hardcore and like the classes and the coursework that you have to take to make you familiar with those technical skills that you need for success.
I think just to add on, just amongst the students in my class that are pursuing energy jobs after graduation, it's a pretty good mix of technical backgrounds and non-technical backgrounds, energy backgrounds and non-energy backgrounds, doing all sorts of different sort of potential opportunities going forward. So lots of chances for everybody. So with that, I guess another question that I'll pass to each of you is, what's the best career advice you've received? So I'll start with Christina, and then I'll go to Laura, and then Natalie.
The best career advice that I don't know if I've received, I think I have. And my kind of mantra is always just to try hard and be nice to people. And I think you can definitely take that to Tepper. You're going to get out of your work, your career, Tepper, whatever you put into it. And so try really hard and be nice to people. That's like the golden recipe for success. Pretty simple.
Natalie?
This actually came kind of recently, and it's something that I've been keeping in mind as I've been almost going through, I'm almost at 1 year at Oregon, is anticipate the questions. And this is kind of funny because I think this kind of works for like any type of role, like consulting in particular, but anticipate the questions that you think people are going to ask. So you're constantly presenting information. You're constantly like looking for approvals to move XYZ project on to the next stage. And I think in order to be really successful, be really efficient, and show that you get it, is to anticipate the types of questions that you think management is going to ask you whenever you are presenting something to them. So you're already able to frame it in a way that makes you sound competent and know what you're doing, and is also, like I said, like really efficient and helps you speed the process along, rather than just like having this back and forth or like a heavy red line or whatever. So it's something that has stuck with me, particularly because of my boss, who is also a former Tepper grad. That just, if you're understanding like what management is looking for out of you, I think it's going to make you very successful no matter what career you're in or looking for.
Laura?
Sure. So mine would just be like ask a lot of questions, get to know people around you cross-functionally, upwards, downwards, laterally, every direction. Because when you take the time to ask everyone about what they're doing, what they're thinking about, when you have to make longer term strategic plans for your role, you can, I guess, make better decisions that align with where the company is going and get easier buy-in along the way.
Awesome. So this question kind of switches gears a little bit, but I'll ask Laura because she brought the topic up a little bit earlier. But could you talk about some of your experiences with the Accelerate Leadership Center, and maybe something that you participated in their program that you would suggest to students that are starting at Tepper now?
Sure. So I actually didn't get the leadership certification. So I think that might be what you were asking at, but I did participate in parts of the program where I signed up for individual coaching with the Leadership Center. So I had a specific designated coach. I believe her name's Laura. I'm not Laura also. I'm not sure if she still works there or not, but we met roughly, I guess, once a mini, and we talked through what was going on throughout my career journey, and what I was trying to focus on, and what skills I was working on. One point that kind of stuck with me, or one session that kind of stuck with me, was I was trying to prepare for interviews, and I kind of knew I was going to get asked, what's your leadership style? And I didn't know how to answer that. So they do a really cool coaching method, which kind of almost feels like therapy, where they ask you to reflect on your experiences and what makes you tick and all of that stuff to kind of build that answer for myself. And I felt like I could have a really authentic answer, because I know sometimes when you answer those questions, it feels fake. And we work together to really figure out how I could answer that question in an authentic way in an interview, and also then apply it in real life.
Awesome. That's definitely great. And I guess for those that are curious, so the certificate program, it's almost just like more opportunities to work with the Accelerate Leadership Center. They'll do a couple of exercises with you, not a huge burden on your time, sort of spanning from about the end of your first year to the end of your second year, including some work to help you sort of work on certain skills, whether they're technical or interpersonal or leadership style, things like that, over your summer internship. And I know that's one, just even going through the process of trying to tell one of the coaches what your goals are for the summer can really help you figure out what you want to do and how you want to make the most of that summer experience. I know that was definitely huge for me, making most out of mine. So with the last set of questions, I think what I'll ask is what was your favorite class, and why? If you have two or a tie, you can say that, that's fine as well. So I see some thinking eyes. So I'll start with Natalie, and then go to Christina, and then Laura.
I think it was sustainable loss. I'm trying to think, like, this is so bad. I only was there less than a year ago, and I already forget like what the names of the classes was. This is really bad, but this is really bad that I can't remember the names of the classes. So I'm just gonna say sustainable ops. It was a really informal class, and it was like kind of lecture based, but it really like fed off of all the students' experiences in the energy and sustainability space. And at the end of the course, we put together a project that we chose a company or area that we wanted to implement like more efficiency, more sustainability. So for example, we chose PNC Park, and we chose like, which is the baseball stadium for those of you who aren't familiar with Pittsburgh. And we thought of ways to just make it a more eco-friendly space, and we put together a pitch and kind of answered questions. I'm trying to think of come back to me, because I need to think about the other OB class that was really good and really helpful, and I'm just really blanking on this right now, so come back to me.
Will do. How about you, Christina?
I am going to give a blanket answer that my favorite classes were the ones that were really different from my background and my previous experience prior to Tepper. So the classes that made me think in a different way. One of my classes that I just adored was consumer behavior. And it was really different from the energy industry, right? We can talk about that kind of stuff. I don't particularly use that class directly, but I enjoyed the thinking. It kind of expanded my mind, and I definitely took a lot away from it. I also enjoyed, I think, Natalie, you talked about it, but negotiations. Like, I kind of went into that thinking this will be pretty straightforward, and it was just really fun and like kind of surprised me. So I would just say, in general, any class not related to your background is pretty fun.
Laura?
All right, I'm gonna go the other way. I guess my background wasn't traditional ops, but I think I took almost every operations course they offer at Tepper. I loved all of them. I was super interested in them. My two favorites were catastrophic risk analysis, which is like basically the opposite of financial risk. It's like real risk, like what's the risk of something blowing up or something like that. So, and it's taught by Professor Jay Apt, who's an astronaut, and I loved that class. It was very entertaining and it felt real to me. So like I felt like I could really apply it. And it's the same stuff you'd learn in a lot of the financial risk classes, but felt more applicable. And then my other favorite one was service management, which was also a ops course, and just like figuring out like we did a lot of case studies on organ transplants and how you can optimize that around the country and with different states having different wait lists and things like that. So I was super interested. And also I guess that ended up being pretty applicable to my role after Tepper as well.
Natalie, do you remember?
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was managing networks and teams, Brandy Avon. I think that's a lot of people's favorite class. She just does an incredible job of analyzing an organization and how people are connected or people are related, and how you can build on those relationships and use those relationships and connections to like get things done. And they talk about like being a super connector and like how like you can like really connect a bunch of different people. And yeah, it's a bunch of people's favorite class. I think she's an incredible professor. So and everybody has to take it, which is even better.
Yeah, definitely a highlight. I guess Ivy, you're in it now, so
Yes.
it's a good one. So one last question out of the chat. is around other industries that you looked at, or were you able to, how able were you to explore a variety of options when you're doing recruiting, versus having to be, laser focused on a particular company or industry? So I'll start with Laura and then go to Natalie.
I think it depends what you want, because there are certain industries where you do need to be laser focused. I think ops in general, you have a little bit more wiggle room in the sense that not every interview has a case. You don't have to do that really strict interview prep. And you don't have to do quite as much networking upfront. Although I want to put an asterisk next to that, because like any amount of networking you can do can be really helpful, even not just for getting a job, but for helping educate yourself about what might be an ideal fit for you. I came in, I think I thought I wanted to do marketing, which ended up not at all being what I wanted. So I recruited my whole first half of the year for marketing, and then the Wayfair alumni came in, and I was completely flipped around. But I guess there's some wiggle room.
Yeah, I think, like Laura said, it depends on the industry and switching. I think I came in wanting to do a bit more ops or whatever, and then realized that ops wasn't for me. And that's just not how I think. That's not how my brain works. And I think switching industries, if you're doing a similar role to like what your previous experience is, I think trying to switch industry and role is very challenging. And I think that's the problem that I ran into, is trying to like look at all these different industries and all these different positions, and it was just like too much, and it was hard to stay focused. So I think if you're a finance person looking to get into like a slightly different industry or a different company, like, yeah. Or for me in energy, switching from like a more finance heavy background to like more development, like that works. And it was really challenging for me to find new roles whenever I was like working for GE. So yeah, I think switching industry and role can be challenging, but if you do like a soft pivot, it's maybe a bit easier.
Awesome. So we'll end with a sort of quick last question, which would be, what advice would you give to a student that's getting ready to start their MBA this upcoming fall? So we'll start, and it doesn't have to be about ops or energy, just in general. It can be about moving to Pittsburgh or being an MBA student or any of that. So I guess we'll start with Laura, then go to Christina, and then finish up with Natalie.
Take advantage of every opportunity you can. I think for me, one of the most impactful things I did for myself during the 2 years was just being really present and devoting as much time to on-campus activities, or even like extracurricular things that were like going on trips with my friends from the program, and just getting to know them outside of class was really important too. So that would be my advice, is just being as engaged with the program and with the people around you as possible.
Christina?
So I was a part-time student, and then I switched to full-time. But especially if you're considering full-time, what a gift to be able to invest in yourself, invest in your learning, and attend an MBA program. And so totally immerse yourself in it, get the most out of it. I really like what you said, be present, and especially be open-minded to changing your objectives, where you want to go after school, and just learn as much as you can.
I would say classes are important, but they're not the only thing. Like classes are important, but so are extracurriculars. Like, so are getting to know your classmates. So are bar nights. So are networking opportunities. So are going to beers, because there's a chance that there will be somebody sponsoring beers that night, and you might be able to have a great conversation with them. But at the same time, like you can't do everything, and it's impossible to do everything that you want to do. And there's a finite amount of time in the day, and there will be more club events and more corporate events, I guess, or the corporate presentations. Like you're not going to be able to do anything. So I say, like, really think about what you want to get out of the MBA, what you want to get out of going to Tepper, and do the things that will make you happy and will help you enjoy your 2 years, but also like will get you the job at the end. So I say just can't do everything, but it is okay to have a little fun and to enjoy yourself too.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to our alumni, to Laura, Christina, and Natalie for joining us tonight and sharing some wisdom with all of us.